Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Advanced Team. I'm Lance Dutson. Let's meet this week's team. Former chair of the Maine Democratic Party, Ben Grant. Former Republican State Representative, John McCain. And Democratic Communications Specialist, Lizzy Rhino. I had to make sure I had everybody's parties right this time. There's a lot of stuff going on. We took a relaxing vacation week last week. I think everybody's schedules were a little bit too busy, but glad to be back back on air today. The topic that we're going to hit first of all today is this extraneous, the case of the extraneous and. There's a big dust up over the language of a bill I think that passed in the last legislative session that by all objective measure was contained a typographical error. There was an extra "and" in it, and that extra "and" ended up costing the Efficiency Maine Efficiency Maine, I think, half of their overall budget, something like $30 to $50 million. I'm not sure. Lizzy Rhino, we're going to go to you first. What's the deal with this? Where are we at with it? And why would an extra "and" end up costing so much money to a government program?
Well, it was a missing "and" that cost the money. Well, basically, this went before the PUC to determine, the rules made it so that the PUC was determining this funding, and they read the bill, and even though there was a typographical error, the Democrats and Republicans actually on both sides even wrote the Public Utilities Commission and said this was the intent of the law. The Public Utilities Commission instead determined that the missing "and" meant that they would only provide funding somewhere around, basically it would mean that there would be about $38 million or $36 million less in funding for Efficiency Maine. This is a simple, easy fix. There was a missing "and." The legislature could simply pass a piece of a bill that put the "and" back in place and fix this funding problem. And that's exactly what Sarah Gideon, who is the assistant majority leader in the House, attempted to do. She submitted an after-deadline bill to fix the and move forward, and the Republicans actually rejected it at a legislative council and wouldn't let the bill be considered. So this is just unfortunate politics. This is a simple fix. This was a bill that passed with a lot of support from the legislature, and rather than just simply fixing the problem, the Republicans are instead dragging their heels, making this into a bigger issue than it needs to be, and it's extremely unfortunate to see. I think the smart thing to do would be to pass a bill that's a simple fix, put the "and" back in place, and move forward. I mean, this is what people don't like about politics. It was a typographical error done by the revisor's office. So now we just have the Republicans who are claiming, oh, we'll have a fix, but unfortunately it seems as though that fix is going to come with a lot more stipulations.
So John McCain, this is an example of Republicans learning from the Rahm Emanuel school of politics, that you never let a good crisis go to waste? I mean, it seems to me that, Republicans have not been big fans of the entire concept of Efficiency Maine for a long time. Is this them taking the opportunity to kind of stick it to Efficiency Maine when they have the chance?
Well, I don't know if they're going to stick it to Efficiency Maine, but it's a good chance to take another hard look at the bill that was passed in, was it 2013? I think that's the omnibus bill was passed then. If there's a mistake in the legal language, then it needs to be fixed. I had a conversation with Seth Goodall a couple of years ago when he was on my committee, regulatory reform committee, and we were talking about some of the stuff that slips through and gives departments a little too much discretion in what they can do and things like that. But he came up, he said, what we've got to do is legislate more carefully, and we've got to legislate better. And this is a good example of that. I don't know how wording like this could have gone through as many stages as it did and be completely missed. It's a good
John, the wording was correct in the committee when they passed the bill out of committee. The wording of the bill was correct. It was an error. There were many drafts that included the "and." It was an error in the final in the final process of printing the bill. It's not as though this was something that was glossed over. In the committee, it was, completely, the intent was clear. Everyone knew what they meant. This is a simple fix.
Well, I understand it's a simple fix to get to where you want to get to, but the legislature passed a bill that said something different, and maybe it's a good time to look at Efficiency Maine. $60 million coming out of ratepayers, and that's supposed to lower rates. That's something that troubles me a little bit. Maybe it's time to cut back a little bit. Maybe this is that part of the program is something that should have been sunsetted a long time ago. But it's a lot of money coming out of ratepayers, and rates are high enough in Maine as it is. It's a good chance to take a look at those things.
So, Ben Grant, obviously there's been a cultural schism between Efficiency Maine and a lot of renewable energy stuff in Maine and Maine Republicans. And I think even nationally, the trouble that the Obama administration has had with stimulus efforts with Solyndra and things like that, I think all feed into this narrative. But, Paul LePage is now in a second term of being governor. Efficiency Maine is a big program, and in its past, Efficiency Maine, I think, has been perceived by Republicans as being a Democrat base of operation. I mean, Adam Lee was the chair of Efficiency Maine. He's a huge Democratic donor. I think Mike Stoddard has been fairly antagonistic toward Republicans. We had the Maine Green Energy Alliance fiasco a couple of years ago. Doesn't it make sense now that LePage is in his second term that either Efficiency Maine changes, or that this funding and this in the aspects of Efficiency Maine, I think everybody agrees are worthwhile, maybe they find a different home or a different way to be more directly impacted by the executive branch?
Well, I mean, that's all well and good if they want to be honest brokers in really examining the issues. I think this is an example of what drives people crazy from the outside about state government, about politics in general, is when this sort of rank opportunism, where there's one word missing, everyone agrees who was involved in the process that it was an oversight and there was no intent behind it. And yet they're trying to use this little tiny opening to drive a truck through it and re-examine the whole issue. Look, there's no mystery here. That's an article of faith among conservatives that things like Efficiency Maine are some sort of plot by people who can see the ocean from their front door, and they're going to, it serves their political purposes to keep antagonizing the environmental community. And I just think that's all that's going on here.
So, John, what about that, about Republicans antagonizing the environmental community? I mean, I know that there is I would say probably a majority swath of voting Republicans in Maine that are fairly environmentally minded, that support in general clean energy and efficiency programs and things like that. I mean, doesn't it make sense for Republicans, especially when we're not directly in campaign season, to try to open the tent up a little bit by not appearing so kind of antiquated in their perspective about renewable energy projects?
It's to say that Republicans are against the environment, it's an insult. What a lot of Republicans are against is, well, this is a form of corporate welfare, and it's certainly something the Democrats have spoken against for a long time. We're taking money from ratepayers, and we're buying new lighting systems, new heating systems for some pretty large businesses. Maybe they could afford some of these on their own. I'm not against scrapping the program at all. I think there are a lot of good parts to this program, and there's a lot of fun. It's a very complicated program. It's funding coming from a lot of different sources. But I do think it's an opportunity to take a look at the funding from the ratepayers.
That's my point.
Characterizing this entire program, this isn't just about businesses. Efficiency Maine provides resources to homeowners. It provides resources to small businesses, like farms. There was a farm in Litchfield that benefited greatly. Here, much of their energy costs were coming from 3 different sources at their farm. By working with Efficiency Maine, they were able to reduce their overall costs and create efficiency. This reduces the amount of energy we're using, and it reduces people's electricity bills. This whole notion that it's a bad idea is simply false. It saved Mainers money through over a number of years. And the bottom line here is the fact that this bill passed with strong bipartisan support in the House and the Senate. Everyone knew what the intent of this bill was. Governor LePage is against energy efficiency. His PUC saw an opportunity to be able to change this bill without having to pass another omnibus piece of legislation, and that's exactly what they did. And now it's unfortunate to see the Republicans who worked so hard on this bill. Ken Fredette was a co-sponsor of this bill, now suddenly backtracking. That omnibus piece of energy legislation should be one of the most things that members of the legislature from last session are most proud of. It was bipartisan. It was one of the most significant pieces of energy legislation we've passed in a decade. And here we have the Republicans wanting to go back on their word. And this is a word. This is the word "and."
Different Republicans. This isn't all the same Republicans. This is a new legislature. It wasn't unanimous last year. The governor was against it. And
the governor was against it so he could drive Stad Oil out of the state and drive out hundreds of millions of dollars in private sector investments.
A lot of money from Maine ratepayers going to Stad Oil. I don't know if I was crazy about that idea.
Well, hold on a
second.
second.
So, for private business?
This is the thing that I don't get about this argument, and I disagree with my party about it to some degree, is pinpointing any kind of subsidy activity with renewable energy stuff. I mean, I think you have to look at the fact that we're investing money in infrastructure in other ways and focusing purely on this issue as corporate welfare, like you described it, John. I mean, what about putting a road somewhere? Or what about natural gas pipeline subsidies? I mean, the state of Maine, through their elected officials, makes decisions to invest in infrastructure all the time, and we've seen. So from a political standpoint, the reason this drives me crazy with Republicans is most people want these programs. I mean, most people would rather the state of Maine stay a pristine environmental destination. And so when our party ends up looking like kind of cavemen on this, I think it causes electoral problems down the line. I think there's a lot of easy opportunities right now for Republicans to embrace the fact that they've been good stewards of taxpayer money, but also not look like they're just a knee-jerk anti-environment on every issue.
Nobody's being anti-environment. Again, just taking a look at the cost of the program. And with rates as high as they are in Maine, and you've got to admit, Maine electrical rates are pretty high. Maybe we shouldn't be putting any more on the backs of the ratepayers than we are, or maybe not as much as is in this bill.
I mean, I think those are legitimate questions to be asking. The reason this is has some turmoil around it, though, is because this wasn't actually an opportunity to do that. They're taking a very minor mistake that everyone agrees on and using that as an excuse to re-examine a program that they may not like. There is a legitimate, honest way to go about and ask those questions, but that's not what's happening right now.
And those were questions that were asked when Democrats and Republicans passed this bill in the last legislative session together, with strong support enough to override a governor's veto.
Well, I guess as they say, elections have consequences, right? And sometimes that's you have to look at the cards that you have. Okay, so that'll be the last word on that. We're going to go to our winners and losers of this week, and Lizzy, we'll start with you. Who's your winner of the political week?
My winner is the Indianapolis Star, which is a newspaper in Indianapolis, Indiana, and also the business community, not just in Indiana but across the country. The Indianapolis Star had an incredible front page today, really pushing against this religious freedom bill, the so-called religious freedom bill in Indiana, that's getting a ton of backlash, and a lot of that backlash has really come from the business community that has stood up and said that they're not going to be standing for bills that legalize discrimination. And I think it really is amazing to see the business community standing out in this type of a way, and newspapers getting involved and seeing this type of national backlash on a bill like this, and they should be commended for it.
John McCain, who's your winner of the week?
I've got a couple. I have to mention Brian Bolduc for his column in the Lewis and Sun Journal, rebuking Democrats and Republicans for these character assassinations, these attacks that have nothing to do with policy and all about personality. But I want to. I think Sugarloaf was a winner this week for its successful National Alpine Ski Championships in the wake of the bad news for yet another chairlift accident. So good luck to them, and I'm going skiing tomorrow. That's why it's on my mind.
All right. Ben Grant, who's your winner of the week?
Well, I was driving into my office this morning. I drove by Bayside Bowl in Portland. I saw the trailers from the Professional Bowlers Tour sitting outside, and it reminded me of what a great event they hosted just over the last few days. The folks from the pros said it was one of the best events they'd ever held, one of the most enthusiastic crowds. Just another way to put Portland and Maine on the map. So good job by them.
All right, great. My winner of the week is the Bangor Daily News political reporting team. Chris Cousins, Knocknoy Ricker, and Mario Moretto, for the way that they dealt with another huge subject that came up, which is the firing of General Campbell, the Adjutant General of the Maine National Guard. The Bangor Daily guys, as opposed to some of their counterparts in the media, took their time. They vetted the issue. They were interested in the facts. They weren't possessed by some kind of a mission, and I think they ended up covering the story in a way that that was fair. It was a terrible, complicated situation, very unfortunate situation, and the Bangor Daily did a really good job trying to stay fair about it. Okay, losers of the week. Lizzy, let's start with you.
My loser of the week is Governor Pence of Indiana, and also the Republican candidates for president who seem to be scrambling to stand shoulder to shoulder with him in really defending his religious freedom bill. You know, he really stepped in it with passing this bill, and what's really hysterical is to see the Republicans and Governor Pence trying to claim, you know, I had no idea if there would be this backlash. I had no idea people would be upset when just last year Arizona went through this entirely same situation with just as much backlash, except for Governor Jan Brewer had the sense to veto that bill. And you know you're on the wrong side of an issue, and even Governor Jan Brewer knows that it's going too far and it's too discriminatory. So Governor Pence really stepped in it, and hopefully he's going to fix it by passing a statewide non-discrimination bill and also fixing the RFRA to make sure that it doesn't override non-discrimination laws.
All right, John McCain, loser of the week.
Well, personally, I voted against more funding for Land for Maine Future, but the funding is out there. It's been used for a lot of good projects in the past, and I have voted for it in the past. But the funding is being withheld right now, and there are a lot of projects that are in the works that are this is putting a strain on them. They've been in the works for many years actually, and I hope we can clear this up and get the money to the different projects out there for Land for Maine Future.
All right, Ben Grant, who's your loser of the week?
Well, we spent a lot of time on Efficiency Maine, but I'll finish with that as well. There's the article in the paper today talking about Senator Thibodeau and Representative Fredette's response to the missing and. I just think their rank opportunism shines right through the article, and I think that they'd be better served to stand up and just do the easy and correct thing in this case and fix this problem.
What do you think is going to happen? Do you think, I guess I'll put that out to everybody, does this get fixed, or will Republicans get extra stuff in this bill?
I think they're going to try to push for as much as they can, and I think the governor's going to try to push for as much as they can, but I think right now they look really silly, especially where they're talking about we want to fix, but they won't tell us what that fix is going to include and what people have to give up for it.
Okay, so my loser of the week, I'm going to go along with Lizzy. Jeb Bush and some of the other Republican presidential prospects in their reaction to the Indiana thing. You know, regardless of how you feel about this bill, politics is about understanding the electorate, and for these guys that hope to be president of the United States and understand the drastic cultural shift that's happened in this country, I think is a bad sign going forward if we're going to successfully put down the Hillary Clinton machine. I think Hillary Clinton is doing more to put herself down than Republicans could do right now, but being on the wrong side of issues like this, I think, is going to really hurt. Okay, guys, well, that's it for episode 14 of the Advanced Team. Thanks again from Ben Grant, John McCain, Lizzy Rhino. I'm Lance Dutson. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.